broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Welcome, AfterBuzz TV fans. I'm your host, Kevin Undergaro, here for AfterBuzz TV Bar Rescue. Substituting for Mia Mastriani, who is on leave with Bar Rescue this week, is Daria Berenato from USA's Tough Enough.
Woo! What's going on, guys?
Wannabe diva? No, I shouldn't say that. About to be diva. I'm sorry, honey.
I'm sorry. Do you have another host?
No, come back. We need you. Okay. MMA fighter. Actually, just totally legitimate. More legitimate than the other divas. MMA fighter, but then also one of the youngest head bartenders that I've ever met in my life at 21 years old.
Yeah, I am 21, but I am a bar manager here in the South Bay area, and I think I do a good job.
So perfect for the show. And then Stephen the Mew has decided to jump out of the booth and onto the panel. So grateful to have you, Stephen.
So we're kind of in a runaway show. I don't know if anyone's in the booth. Do we have someone in the booth?
There we go. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay.
But if Steven's not there, then who's there?
I think it's James.
Oh, okay.
Is it James?
James, you there, buddy? Okay, just a thumbs up. Well, you'll warm up as time goes on. Tonight's episode was
original.
Okay, here's why I'm so excited. First of all, thank you, Stephen, for coming in, because I'm excited to have a bigger panel for this, because this one, it was hard for me to give a judgment, being the fact that Maria Menounos and myself were on the show. Yeah. So I was like, is it because I was too close? It was because I saw how the secret sauce got made. I was going back and forth with Maria in terms of how this rates in terms of the episode. So I want to start with you, Daria, for general thoughts, and even what you said before we went up was interesting.
Yeah, I was watching it and I wanted to rip my hair out because it was so frustrating as someone that runs a bar to see, the mistakes that were going on in this bar. As an owner, I would have been mortified to see it, but Rick himself was doing a lot of the damage in the bar. Not having track of inventory is like no number one. You really need an organization system in place when you open a bar, let alone after 10 years of it being open, still not having those systems in place. That's a little scary. I don't know how he wasn't in more debt.
Okay, but what I took, my bigger takeaway from all this is that you were screaming at the TV.
Oh, I was freaking out.
Okay, so that to me, A, says that this is probably a better episode than I thought, and B, that doesn't Bar Rescue just do that to you?
It does, because it makes you like, oh, how stupid are they? But then you go through the process of what they've been going through, you get in their minds a little bit, and you're like, okay, well, it's not that dumb, because, when you're in it, and you're trying to make people happy, and you're trying to make money, things kind of just go over your head.
You get in too deep, and then you get overwhelmed, and then you just don't know how to pull out. Okay, so Stephen, go ahead.
So I think with this episode, I kind of get what you were thinking. I wasn't as good as usual, but I don't think it wasn't as good. I think it just wasn't as apocalyptic. I think so far this season has had a lot of crazy episodes and everything's super crazy. And we had last week, I think it's smart to put this episode after the Back to the Bar last week, where we see the O-Face, we see all these crazy people. This was an episode that was purely really educational. It was one of those things it's back to the basics of, this is a guy who doesn't know how to run a business. This is why he's failing, and let's fix that, and let's tell you how we're fixing that. It's not somebody who's absolutely out of his mind who's driving a bar into the ground intentionally. It's another person who, maybe they should have just had a bar in their basement and had another successful business. Because he was running another successful business before he was doing the bar game.
Yeah, it seemed to me that seeing the episode made me realize that it probably was the second business, and the fact that he's 60 years old, and because he is more the front man, that he's not the guy that's gonna get in and fix a fryer later, or fix an ice machine, or do the inventory, or and now add the fact that he's an older man. You can end it with a second bar. I could see where it was starting to crumble, but for me, I was saying this last week, it was really hard to be on this episode because the episode we had done previously, where I was drinking alcohol that had literally little bugs and bug feces in the drink, that was a no-brainer.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't even wrap my head around, is this going to be a good episode or not? Because I was starting to vomit. Literally, it was coming up in my mouth, and then I'm like, I'm on camera or whatever. And so this one, here was this guy, and of course, in editing, they compress it really far down to the 8 bottles that he pours for Maria. But during it all, he was incredibly charming. He was not a bullshit artist. He really knew his wine. And unlike a lot of other sommeliers or people who are wine people, he wasn't a snob. He was like, listen, wine is all about if you like it, okay? There's people, everyone has different tastes. Like and they didn't use my quote, but I let Maria do all the talking because John had her in the earpiece and he was telling her, order more wine.
Say that, right?
Not say this or say that, but just order more, get him to open another bottle of wine. That's what he was doing. And I didn't know what was going on. All I kept thinking back in my head was like, where's the show here? This guy's a great guy. The place wasn't really, the outside of the place, yes, there were 3 different signs. And it looked a little bit more like a banquet hall than it did a bar or a wine bar. But again, this is a guy that's not going to pick up a paintbrush. He's just not that guy. But so that was a little off. The inside wasn't so bad. There were some tacky things like I'm at the Pissa, the little, yeah, he had those little coasters, right? Well, again, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a weird kind of funny charm to that, where regulars who are drinking, they've got their bottle, their little half a glass of wine. They want to let you know, listen, I'm just in the bathroom. I'm not leaving.
Right. So
they put out the little coaster that says I'm in the Pissa. So he's got all that stuff, but again, not a dirty place, not a poorly decorated place. And so when I was sitting there, I was so confused because I was like, wait, oh my God, I feel so bad because there's no episode here.
Right.
I was like, there's no show. And then what I didn't realize, and why I'm not John, and I don't know John's expertise, is John realized that exactly what the problem was the fact that he was great with people, and he had a passion for wine. He just didn't have a passion to do all the other works and things that go into it. And maybe they weren't making enough money to have the manager come in to do that kind of stuff. But that's where John was able to find the show, and I had no idea. And there was another great quote that I really wish they had used, and I get with editing they couldn't, where John and I and Maria were outside, and he said, "This is a bar rescue first. We actually have an owner who's a good guy and who cares."
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, that's such a great quote. Because one thing we try to do here every week is what we love about the show is 100 episodes in, they're still surprising us with firsts. Like, this is the worst bar crew ever, or this is the first time we saw this. And I'm a little surprised they didn't use that, but John did say that. He was like, this is a guy who cares and is not a bad guy. He's like, so this is a bar rescue first, because we're used to, we're not used to that. And if you see John's face as he's dealing with this guy, you see it in his eyes. Like, I was telling John likes somebody, or he's done working, and I could see he really liked the guy. And so he wasn't, even though in the meetings, the staff meetings and stuff, he was hard on him where he needed to be. You could see that he really liked it. He liked him. And the guy was super, super likable guy.
He seemed it. And like you said, there were so many good things about the bar that it may have been hard to pick out the bad.
Well, that's what made it hard.
Right. But being someone that worked in the industry for so long and still does, it's easy to pick out that format that it's like, okay, this guy's a great entertainer. You probably would love to sit down and talk with him, but that doesn't bring the dollar signs. That doesn't make you a successful business. If he were the front man and only the front man, and he had bartenders, servers, back runners, everything like that were trained properly to do that job, he could do what he did. He could do his little gimmick. He could come out and talk to people, but he needs to pick one or the other. He can't be taking orders, running food, opening bottles of wine while trying to talk and entertain with you, because it just calls for bad business. Whereas if he were to just do that and be the manager owner and associate with the customers and bring that likability factor to the bar, he could do that. But he has to make sure that he has a full staff of well-trained employees to do the rest of the work.
And he should, for me, and I don't know what financially he probably didn't have it in him, but he needs a really good manager.
Yeah.
And then he just comes in.
He needs to not be the one in control of the finances.
Listen, come on. Even if you got anyone knows anything about AfterBuzz, like Phil, Steve, and Marissa, you guys really run this place, and you guys are great, and enables me to come by here and be Rick. You know what I mean? Like, no.
That's exactly what it is.
But I'm Rick. I can come and I can talk to you guys about the business and how to break in and various aspects. I can make, phone calls to you guys, like, tap into my contacts and things like that. And
right.
But I don't have to be saying anymore, this has to be clean, this has to be organized. The staff, I have a great staff who does that.
Right. I just think what's so interesting about this episode is you can see that, you can take any other episode and you're like, okay, this bar is failing because the food is bad or because it's really dirty. This bar is failing because the service staff are assholes or something's going on. It's nice to see and it's refreshing to see that you can have a lot of your cards in the right area, but if one side of the whole cookie is really falling down, it can bring your whole bar down, because somebody with average everything can have a more successful bar than somebody with average everything except terrible finances.
So and before we get more into the specifics, so did Stephen, did you enjoyed the episode? That's what it seems like.
No, yeah, I enjoyed the episode a lot because it didn't feel gimmicky at all. Sometimes there is that little feeling of oh my god, this is so crazy, it's so utterly reality, it's crazy. I like the stories.
I can't get enough of that, by the way. So I'm sorry. I can't get enough of the crazy, but
I do love it, but I like this episode because John's helping a genuinely likable guy, and it's not somebody who I feel like he shouldn't be helping. It's not somebody who doesn't deserve it, because of course he gets defensive in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Can you imagine being first of all, you know, Stephen, being a male, that we just have such pride, and then imagine being 60 and being undressed in front of your wife, your staff. You can see where somebody would react. So, Daria, what about you? What did you think of the episode?
So, I thought it was a good episode. Like he said, it's realistic. We see actual problems that we're like, oh, these are fixable, right? The guy's just unorganized. He doesn't have inventory. Well, let's get him inventory. Let's get his numbers back in order. It looked like an episode where there was a lot of hope. Mm-hmm. That John Taffer could come in there and save the day, which he can do it with any kind of craziness. But this one specifically, I think that it gave the audience, the viewers like us, oh, okay, it's going to be all right. We can fix this. And even me, as someone that was inside, the problems were so minute, but yet they're such a big deal. Like the bartender that was like, oh, I don't know anything about wine, have him tell you.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And it drove me nuts. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Okay, all right. So let's get into specifics. So we talked a little bit about the recon. We brought in Chef Pink, who we know is great with the organic fresh fare, and then Matt Kaner, who's a sommelier. So it's perfect, that we have, again, they put together a really nice combination to bring them in. And as I said, on the outside we have 3 different signs going. Something that says brew, something that says deli, something that says wine. So it's a bit of a mess. To me, that's, he probably put up one sign and then put up another later, like, again, because he's not that guy to be.
Well, in concept, I can see how anyone who hasn't really researched in concept would think, okay, this is a good idea, because he's got a building that's separated into 2 parts. He's got the part that has where people are going to eat, or they're going to have a beer and things like that, and they can go into the deli, the New York deli side. Then he's got the wine bar where all they have are the wines, and it's a very different kind of atmosphere. But in reality, you're going to have people who want to go to the wine bar who are going to want to have a beer, and that's where it messes up. And you're going to have people who want to go to the wine bar and want to have a sandwich so that's where it doesn't work. But in concept, if you're not researching, you think, oh, this is a great idea.
Right.
And he had the right idea with that by not telling the customer no. A lot of places they'll establish...
In terms of what? No what? So, to what question?
No. So if you were to go to the wine bar and say, oh, I want a beer, a lot of places, oh no, you have to go over to the beer side. Yeah. Nobody wants to do that. You'd be like, oh, well, and I'm going elsewhere. So he had the right idea by saying, oh, no problem, we'll grab you a beer, stay right there. Hun, go run over and grab him a beer. That's great when you have 10 people in the restaurant, even 20. But when you're trying to have a grand reopening and you're trying to fill this place and really up your business, you need to come up with a format.
Right.
Like we were talking about, it's good for a basement bar. If you're running your little basement bar, that's awesome.
We talk about
run across the
Daria,
room.
as you know, hopefully we'll get you to sit in some more weeks, but we see it every week where it's like, oh my goodness, take your people at home, take your $90,000, treat yourself to the most amazing basement bar. Let's get a pinball machine in there, a draft system.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Flat panels everywhere, neon sign, and just knock it. First of all, you're going to increase the value of your house. Second of all, you're going to have an amazing time for the next 20, 25 years. And you can, by the way, if you have a keg there and you have a company come to switch keg out every month, you're not going to be spending much money in beer. And plus, you can have friends bring alcohol. just saying, I know how much fun it is to have a bar, but you can have one in your basement and save yourself bankruptcy, save yourself a lot of headaches. And he was a trucker, and that's what it was. He was telling us that night, he trucking all over the place on the West Coast, and that he'd seen this bar. And then he had his aha moment, and he really is such a character. I mean, did you notice that every time he got a chance to really have be P.T. Barnum and step up on the platform,
I can't imagine him as a trucker. He's so
weird,
social, right? And he's so kind of like. Yep. Flamboyantly entertaining. He's great. I can't imagine him behind a car for 8 hours.
Maybe it's years and decades of sitting in a truck, not being able to talk to anybody, built up into this wonderful personality.
Also, the other thing with a lot of truckers is that they're an odd bunch, and when I say that is that they're not. I know, again, from the carny business, we trucking up and down the coast with the carnival equipment, so I met a lot of them, and they're not your standard. Stereotypical. There are those guys that you would say when you think trucker in your brain, you're seeing that guy with the Cat Diesel hat, but a lot of them are deeply introverted, where they love reading and they love cooking, and they just I'm saying they are an oddball bunch. They're definitely not that they all don't fit into that one stereotype, because it takes a real different person to be alone all those hours.
Absolutely. They're definitely extremist, right?
Yes.
Somebody that either loves the solitude or loves the extra time, whatever it is.
And usually that extra time is spent, on just the things that you would be so surprised.
Honestly, I'm sure a lot of our podcasts are picked up by people who are trucking all the time. Mm-hmm. And if they're at a next rest stop, they should go to iTunes and they should give us a 5-star review.
Oh, thank you, Stephen.
So
write a little comment on the iTunes. So
talk to us. Yeah, I would love to talk to you.
On the Bar Rescue AfterBuzz TV After Show. But yeah.
Go to iTunes, rate and comment, and then go to YouTube, rate and comment, and and if you like Daria, then ask her to stay.
What? You want me to stay?
I want you to stay, so Steve.
No problem. Guys, I'm going to be back every week.
Okay. We like that.
Okay. We got to get Daria next to Mia, because that would be an odd combo.
I told Mia about you. She was excited. Yeah, Mia's head bartender at Soho.
Oh,
but she's also on Bar Rescue all the time. So it's
that is definitely a good gig.
It's a great gig, and it's just unfortunately we lose her because now she's doing Bar Rescue this week, so we don't have her. But anyway, we brought in the rookie to take care of her. So.
While we're waxing poetic, guys,
okay.
I got. AfterBuzz TV is a very fun venture, and we like putting out these shows for you, and we always put them out week by week for free, over 150 hours of content a week. And to do that, we have a few sponsors, and we always got to give shout-outs to our sponsors. So today, Mazda has a really important question for you. Does driving matter to you? Driving with the windows down, the wind blowing through your hair, the smell of pine trees and fresh asphalt. You look forward to these moments when it's just you and the road, no distractions, handling every curve, and feeling every nuance in the road. So ask yourself, does driving matter to you? If it does, we build cars just for you, because to us, driving matters. Mazda.
Very good. Those new Mazdas are really cute.
Yeah, they're really cool.
They are. It's cool a really cars. Great brand. Okay, so some good takeaway too about the wine industry. Obviously, people over 40 are going to be your biggest wine drinkers. However, I didn't know that the target that with the largest growth is 25 to 34, the millennials. So I can see where. It was just what I love about the show, Daria, is I'm always learning. Even though I was a bartender for a couple of years.
Absolutely.
And I was in the food business for a long time. Anyway, when we get everyone together after the recon and we meet with the staff, he calls him out. Matt calls him out on food and wine don't mix. Yeah, so it's just like I have to say I think it was taken out of context.
Probably
by Rick. I think he knew better than that.
I'm sure he did. You say things in the moment. You're trying to upsell. You're trying to get these people to like you. Absolutely, you say things.
I think what he meant was, if you just simply pin it to that, you're going to be in trouble because there's multiple combinations. Because I know that a lot of the wine experts I know will talk about the right wine for chocolate and the right wine for this and the right dessert wine and so there are pairings, but I think what Rick was trying to say is it just would get too confusing. He couldn't make the business just about that.
Yeah.
And I have to say that the pastrami sandwich was the best I've ever had in probably my life.
Really?
Yeah.
It looked really good.
It did look delicious.
Like, I love a sandwich just topped full of meat. Like,
And again, a bar rescue first, because
the food's good.
right.
The food is good, right? And
There's no
the
rats in the
product is
kitchen,
good.
right?
Absolutely. I think that an important part was just when a customer asks you a question, the number one rule in the service industry is don't ever not have an answer. Say something.
Oh, right.
You know, make it true.
So you're speaking about the pricing list and the right?
I'm speaking of everything, really. But when he said that, no food matches with any want, give him an answer. Be like, actually, our chicken picante goes great with a nice Pinot Grigio. Isn't that what you'd rather hear?
Even if it doesn't.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't.
So
come on.
So going back to your earlier point, when we have this kind of staff shakedown, that they don't know any of the prices of the wine, and then and then the pod buster. That's the during the commercial break they'll throw up a little bar rescue clip. And the pod buster, the girl said, "Well, we just Google it,
Times it by 3.
and then Rick was like, "That works."
John's face like,
I hope that was like a magical editing moment.
I don't think it was.
Oh, that's so bad.
I don't think it was.
but what are you going to do? I mean, honestly, when your boss orders a case of wine and tells you to sell it and doesn't give you a price, what are you going to do?
Absolutely, it's Rick's fault, not the employees. When you're an employee in a situation like that, I mean, you go with the flow. You either stay or you
At
leave.
least they're putting a price on it and not giving it away for free.
I also think he was such speaking of what a nice guy is, I also think that he's probably too nice of a guy as a boss. Like, he's probably not the one giving these guys the boots in the behind.
You definitely need that stern attitude to run a bar, specifically, not even just a business, but a bar. You have to have that backbone, that structure. That's why it's really important to have a bar manager that's going to set the price points and do the research and do their homework, so that your bar doesn't stand out as, oh, that's the expensive bar in the neighborhood, or oh, that's really cheap, it's kind of sketchy.
Right.
You need to fit into your demographic and into your neighborhood. That's really important, when, especially a young demographic like this. These 20-year-olds, they're going to look at the price point and they're going to say, this place is too expensive for us, or
I thought too, the staff seemed very nice, well intended, but they did not seem like a wine.
They didn't seem knowledgeable on wine.
Staff.
Definitely
Right.
not. They definitely need some training.
It's right, and again, so much is education. John had some great quotes in his dress down. It was act like an owner, not like an entertainer. If you think small and act like a server, you'll be a server the rest of your life. Your days of playing Big Shot are over. He just hammered him.
Shut the hell up.
Yeah, I'm here to. And then Rick walks out, and I saw some comments where people like, that's always the famous bar rescue walkout thing coming. First of all, it's not the famous walkout. It does not happen every episode. A walkout. It doesn't.
Right.
In fact, it doesn't even happen more than half the time. But. Again, a 60-year-old guy is just being dressed down, and he's got so much stress. It's just like, I don't need it. I could totally see him leaving.
I just kept picturing my dad standing there and like someone coming and telling him how to run his company. Not that would ever happen, and I just kept picturing my dad being like, who do you think you're talking to? Because it's hard. You're a grown man.
So hard.
You've worked for yourself your whole life, and then you have some guy coming in telling you what to do. It's really hard to find that that humble
It's even
spot.
hard with people who are my age to tell
Then that's hard too, because you guys have all the testosterone and all that, But it's a little easier because at least you are used to learning every day, whereas at that age. Most people shut their learning off at 21,
you peak,
22.
Right? They have their peak.
Most people.
It's interesting because like I feel for the guy, and I kind of connect. I connect with him in the way that like what he's doing is he's working 12 to 16 hours a day as a server, just like I was engineering and doing all that stuff, and like I feel like it's super important. I need to be doing it, but then it takes someone to be like, you need to let other people do this so you can focus on other things.
Right.
But in your mind, it's hard to get out of the thing.
And train them properly and empower them properly to do it, and then you walk away. Like I did with you guys, you know what I mean? And that's what Rick needs to do. That staff, you could tell he hadn't done that with.
Well, it's really hard also to open a business with your own savings and then to go, all right, it'll be successful in 5 years once I get it running properly, which is mostly the case. I think that Rick kind of had instant gratification in his mind, like, okay, I'm going to open this place, it's going to make money, and I'm going to run it, and I'm going to make sure everything is okay, instead of taking his time, implementing that system, and making sure that all his ducks are in order before he opens the doors.
Or he did it, and it's working at the other bar, not here.
what's really interesting to me, though, guys, is that I think that's probably for Sunset, right? Mm-hmm. $1.3 million the first year. Like that, I saw that. I was like, that is amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is something that'll make somebody think they're doing everything right.
Absolutely.
Right there. And then they're not going to notice it so much because they're stuck on that number.
That's right.
I made 1.3 million. I might only be making $400,000 this year, even though they're taking a deficit of 450 or 500.
Yeah, everything you're doing is being positively reinforced. So why should you try anything else?
Exactly.
Right.
And it's hard. It's a lesson to all of us. When we get in 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, is still being humble enough to learn and humble enough to listen to other people, and it's really hard. It's hard for me too, but I remind myself, like, stop. You're being like all the other people. Like, this person has much more success in this area. You need to listen. And then there's times where, and we see it with some of the owners, in the rare cases, like the guys on spirits and bourbon, where they'll take what John has and then they amend certain things, and make certain tweaks and changes. They put their touch on it to bring it to the next level.
They're selling their mix. I watched that before.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really so great. Cool. It was interesting to learn about the oxidation in the bottle and how to save that fourth glass of wine. It's a great takeaway. Did you know that?
I did, and it's so important to know things like that, because had you not known that, you're either serving a bad glass of wine, which can put a bad reputation out for your restaurant, or you're wasting wine and you don't know why you're wasting it. Keeping track of those inventory mistakes like that is really important, because now you know where your numbers are going.
What I really liked about this is that a lot of restaurants, to get that price point and get the last fourth glass, is they'll introduce wine flights. And they'll because you can do those 3 ounces. If you have 3 ounces left in a bottle, you know what, I'm going to do another wine flight in the next hour, so that's fine. I don't have to toss it. The problem with that is then you're opening 4 bottles for 1 wine flight, and then if you don't finish off those bottles, you're breaking that. But for high capacity restaurants, it's worth it. For a place like this, where it doesn't seem like they're selling those 4 wines all over the place, I love that champagne drink that they created, and the drinks that are going to get the residuals out of that without having to do 4 different wines.
Do you know what's even easier than doing wine flights to sell off the wine that you may have wasted?
Host tastings?
Having knowledge. If those bartenders were properly trained and they had all the knowledge in the world, and Kevin came in and said, "Can I have a sweet red?" and that wine bottle that you have that has about a glass in it happens to be a sweet red, you would know to upsell that to the customer, because it's meeting your likings, it's exactly what you asked for. But instead of maybe grabbing the Malbec that you would have grabbed, because that's the one on top of your head that you know is sweet or whatever, you grab the one that's open that you need to get rid of. So that now you're selling properly based on waste levels. You don't want to waste, so you're like, okay, but this wine's good, try it. Do you like it? Perfect.
Right. Smart.
Yeah.
I got to get you down to Rick's place. So we see in the stress test that. Oh, but before, I loved it because Rick's outside. He goes, "Sunset Beach, it's alive! It's alive!"
He's great.
He gets to do his Dr. Frankenstein, which I thought was great. But we learned in the stress test that there's only a 1 draft beer system, which is like a nightmare, and then also the extension cord to the machine, the POS machine, is unplugged, so none of the food tickets are getting to the kitchen.
Again, another example with the beer of how the little things can really just ruin your business when everything else could be fine. This is the first time I've seen somebody have like a beer tap system and it be on temperature, and they don't make a point to say that, hey, this is off temperature, these beers aren't coming out right. Their draft system was working fine, they just didn't have access to it in the other half of the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, you don't leave the bar untended, but if you work somewhere where you do it once, no one says anything, you do it twice, no one says anything, you do it a third time, it's encouraged, you're going to leave the bar, because that's what you do.
Yeah, you can't ever leave the ship.
You don't ever leave a bar untended.
Yeah.
Would you want to be sitting in a bar and then the bartender's gone?
No, it's the worst. And even in the carnival business too, when we'd have lines, so it was always important. We have to have someone in there, because a line would disappear like that.
Absolutely.
If they didn't see, if there's no one there, just sales
there
just
goes
lost.
Your sales.
And in a bar, you risk a walkout.
And that just has to do with it all has to do with organization. Rick has all the great ideas for this bar. It's just organization, because there should be a bar back running drinks and clearing the glasses off the table. There should also be a food runner that's checking for the food in the kitchen.
I know the problem is sometimes what we have with these bars is that for the stress test, and even the final party that they usually have after the renovation, they're getting a ton of people to come out. However, the daily grind of a lot of these bars is far less.
Yeah.
So for a place like this, probably financially couldn't take on a bar back, or maybe unless
Right.
that person pooled tips or something like that. I don't know, but I think this just the way this got hit in the stress test and the way it got hit in the final is probably never going to happen again unless it's a private party.
Right. So in that case where you don't have that much money, it's just communication.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, there's 2 bartenders behind the bar. You always stay here. Don't leave. This is your deck. This is your shift. I'm the one that runs back and forth and grabs the beer. Just so there's always somebody there. Just
I agree.
communication.
But the good thing is Rick does move his 10 bottles of wine, no problem. Like, you knew that wasn't going to be an issue for him.
Right.
But the conclusion is, as we've been saying, is that we need systems in place. It was funny because he almost snapped again about the extension cord. He goes, I don't need it right now. And to John, I go, no, Rick, stay in the game, kid. Stay in the game. But anyway, so, John has his sit down with them. And that's where you see John's face. He just must really like this guy. And he admitted, he said, I'm spending more time now trying to deal with all the problems I've created than actually just having a bar that makes money. So they come to this good place, and then, we have more training for the food, which was a nice menu, and then a little bit more work on the 4th glass of wine, coming up with another couple of drinks for that. And I think we just moved right to the reopen.
Yeah.
So the new opening, Pacific Coast Wine Bar, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And we've got a second draft system, but I guess it's just from the outside, it looked more uniform. It looked better.
Man, LED lights are changing how things look.
Everything.
Everywhere.
Everything.
We use them all around the studio here, but you take... I was at a wedding, and I saw they have these square boxes now that run on battery that you just charge at the end of the night. Shoots a high-powered beam, and you put it anywhere in the room, and just brightens
I think
everything up.
it is, Stephen. It's always been around. Lighting makes everything. Whether it's a house, whether it's a party, whether it's a business or TV show, it's crucial. Always has been. I think because we now do it. You and I do it for a living now with all these studios and whatever. You're much more aware of it. But I agree. And once that place was lit up in that sexy way, it was a game changer for me.
For me, I wasn't so much looking at the change in decor or anything like that as you guys were. I was looking at the convenience of the setup. I saw the beer taps right next to the wine bottles.
Okay, so let's go inside. So tell me what you thought inside.
Interior,
Go ahead, take me inside.
Yeah, so I walk inside, and obviously the white leather bar tops are beautiful. Everything looked great. But like I said, the decor to begin with wasn't that bad. I wasn't disgraced by that, like some of the other bar rescues where I'm like, oh my gosh, redo this whole thing.
Right.
So behind the bar, though, was the most important part. They brought the beer taps over to the wine bar. Now it's one big bar. Anything you order is right here. There's no reason I should ever have to leave the bar. If there is a reason I have to leave the bar, there's a bartender back there that can stay, like I said. And I just think it makes more convenience, especially for the waitresses and waiters putting in the POS systems. They got the brand new POS systems. They have 2 of them now in each room. I mean,
the sliding door to open the place up.
Absolutely.
I like the presentation. I think the presentation of your drinks and your bottles is going to be one of the biggest things that leads to selling it. Around the bar, they had these placard things that had one bottle hanging and told you about that wine, like around the place.
So cool.
So like having the house wines where everyone can kind of see them, that's a great idea because your house wines, they may be the cheapest, but you're going to sell the most of them. So you definitely want people knowing what you have.
And then I like the idea of a neutral bar top to show off the brightness of the red wine. I thought that was cool.
Absolutely, that was brilliant.
Right? So he goes from song and dance man to business owner. But, it's funny. The epilogue of this is more interesting. So I went to Bar Rescue Updates, as I always do, to see where these bars are at in the comments. And Rick changed the name back.
Really?
Yes.
But is it a cohesive, every sign's the same, or?
I don't know. All I know is I think it's called Sunset Bricks. I'm not sure. Check it out. But he definitely changed the name back. And my knee jerk was like, oh, Rick. But then I read a couple of interviews with Rick. And again, it's kind of a bar rescue first because
right.
I at least understood this time why he put the name back.
And what was his reasoning?
I don't know if I agree with it, but well, first of all, his reasoning was, of course I gave Maria 8 classes. Whatever she wanted. It's Maria Menounos. And I knew it was. And he's like, and I really wanted to. And by the way, that's actually sound judgment. If you have a big influencer or star come into your place, or a food critic or something, you spend the $250.
Kudos to him.
So okay, so I get that. Mm-hmm. So but he said that beer drinkers are very particular, and he makes so much money off beer. And to call it a wine bar, he said beer people are fickle, and you will lose the beer audience if you say it's just a wine bar. I actually can see that thinking being sound.
Yeah, the bar that I manage is a wine and craft beer bar. And it's so important that craft beer is in the name, because whether you guys like to believe it or not, craft beer is the hot commodity on the market right now as far as alcohol goes. Craft beer is what all the young kids are drinking from the age of 21 to like 35.
Right.
Craft beer is it. That's it. So, that would be, I agree, it would be hurting the business not to mention that in the title.
So just to say, because I did, when I was down there and when I saw the show, I loved Pacific Coast Wine Bar. But I don't know enough about the business, but I did love the idea of capitalizing on the Pacific Coast brand, and it's like, and if I drive by and see Pacific Coast Wine Bar, I know what I'm getting, but I don't know the business well enough that I thought the business was 100% sustained by wine, but it's not. And I can now, from what you're saying, even more so, I can see that. The
only reason I go back and I agree with John Taffer rather than changing the name back is because I only saw 4 or 5, maybe 6 beers on tap. That doesn't make it a craft beer bar. That makes it a wine bar that has beer in it. My bar has 40 beers on tap, as well as over 30 selections of wine. So it's more focused on the beer, which is why you have to have both those in the name. Whereas this, it's kind of it's a wine bar that has beer.
It looked like a wine bar when I first went in there, and then it looked even more so when John left. So now, of course, because I'm the master flip-flopper, I have flip-flopped back to Team Taffer. Thank you, Daria.
No problem.
I can see why maybe he did that, and probably he's probably married to that name Bricks,
right?
Because the other Bricks is successful,
right?
But, I think you could have put the name into the thing. I don't know. The whole name thing just really bothers me, and I don't know how to fix it as the producers of the show.
Right.
How to get them to buy in. You can get them to sign whatever you want them to sign, but they're such dirtbags, and you're not going to want to go back into their state and litigate. So it's really hard to keep them liable. The only thing you could probably do is have them give you $10,000 retainer and keep that in an account, and that would come back after a year or two after,
I guess.
But they would. But most of these places are so broken and beaten down. They can. But I think they. You know what? I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they wouldn't be able to come up with that $10,000 to be on this show.
The Yelp reviews are fairly hit or miss.
Okay.
A lot of them are 4 or 5, but then you'll get a few in a row that are just 1 star, 2 star saying, and most of the complaints are all just service.
It's service. Yeah, it's still. Well, he didn't have. I don't think the staff. I don't think that staff was down for it. Again, it could be training. It's definitely training, but they didn't look like a wine staff.
No, I mean that's the most important thing. One of the things I am the biggest critic on in my bar is that if you don't have your knowledge, get out. Really, just go do something else, because I'm sure you're great at other things. If you're not great at this and you're not invested in learning about it, it's not for you, because there's a lot to learn, especially wine. Wine is so complex. There's so many types, so many blends, what goes with what. And another whole thing is food pairing. And that's something that you should know if you're serving food with wine. It's definitely a question that a customer like you or Maria is liable to ask, and I should have the answer. So there's a lot of knowledge to be learned, and I absolutely think that service comments are probably the number one thing you're seeing for a reason. They're not trained still.
I'd be interested to see what the competition is in that area.
Where is it?
It's a beach bar. It's beach, so there's tons of bars around, but not wine.
So that's why I kind of disagree with changing it back to Bricks. Is wine bar? If somebody tells me wine bar, I'm going to think exactly what John Taffer turned it into. I'm going to think bottles on the wall, dark colors. You're going to go in. You're going to have a charcuterie tray. You're going to chat. You're not going to like eat a hefty meal or do anything. You're going. Maybe you have a dinner and then you go to the wine bar.
Right.
So I don't agree with changing it back to bricks. I think the wine bar was probably to separate it from all the other bars in the area, because some people don't want to go to a crowded bar on the beach and get beer spilled on them and be all over the place, because beaches get crowded quick. I think a wine bar is supposed to be a very relaxed and just chill environment where you have a glass of wine, eat some meat and cheese, and talk to friends. Or have a date.
Maybe instead of going from the beach in your bikini to the bar, you now go home, you shower, you get changed, and you go to the wine bar. And that's kind of the separation between that and all of its other.
Because, by the way, it was a great bar, and it was a place that we would love to hang out. And honestly, it was he even had
it looked really cool.
He was saying some of the regulars would come in, and they called themselves bricks at 6. They'd come in at 6 o'clock and have their, it was a nice place. He was a great guy, and the wife was a gem. Like, we didn't say enough about how great his wife was.
Really?
Oh my God, she was amazing. She was the one saying, "You're killing us with your tomfoolery."
That was sad.
Yeah. And I always feel bad when people are at that age and you're running out of money. But then some of the other comments I read claimed that he had sold a portion of ownership of this bar, and he's not going to be as involved in the day-to-day on this bar. So I don't know.
You were in the bar, of course.
Right.
So can I ask, what was the setup like? Because with all those people shoved in there for the stress test and things like that, I feel like the tables would get in the way, like all the places where people would sit down. Does this seem more like just a place to sit down as opposed to everyone standing up at the bar trying to get drinks?
More of a sit down.
More of a sit down. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It looked like it, yeah.
I mean, a real chill place, but it was a big building, and I didn't know what was on the second floor, if staff was living on the second floor, because it was just weird. It was a big building, but then it didn't feel as big inside. It was just, anyway, but, okay. Just, we usually don't get much from next week, but did you guys see the tease for next week?
Yeah, I briefly saw it.
I think.
Urban bar, all African Americans, and I think it's like there's it seems like the problem is that there's 8 managers. And not one person in charge.
So this episode, we don't have a manager.
Right.
And next episode, I'm assuming we're going to see micromanaging, which
Maybe.
is
Yeah, and
my
one
second biggest pet peeve.
There's one guy, it seems like he's very stubborn, and just, again, it was really quick, but it's fun, and it's fun. I always like just different worlds, what I mean? So that's good. I like seeing an urban bar. Now, we've done the urban nightclub. I want to see. I think this just looks like a bar, so that's going to be fun. So I'm excited for next week. All right, Daria, where do we find you?
You can find me at Tough Daria on all your social media. You guys can come to my bar and visit me at Flight's Craft Beer Bar in El Segundo. You guys can also follow my journey to the WWE at Tough Daria on all social media.
Nice. You can find me on Twitter at Stephen Lemieux and doing the Strain After Show later tonight.
Okay, and you really don't need to go visit her at the bar. Are you crazy? God, are you nuts? Well, she's an MMA fighter, so if anyone does go, they're going to have a problem.
I'm not
Unless
there
you're
that
nice.
often.
Okay.
I'm
Listen.
just saying go there. It's
Tweet
good.
to Daria, send pictures on Instagram. Please support her on her journey to the WWE. Okay, I'm Matt Undergaro, and we are looking very much forward to next week. And please, can we have you next week?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, hopefully we'll have full table with Mia. All right, awesome. You guys, thanks everyone. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.